Hello there, welcome back. This is Chand from studyeasy.org, and in this particular video we will try to understand how to delete a record from the database using Hibernate. Now the operation is pretty simple and we would be updating the code which we have built in our last video. So here is the code from the last lecture where we have updated a record. So when it comes to deleting a record, what are the steps? The first step would be creating an object of entity class type, which is already done. Then we need to begin the transaction, which is again done. And then we need to perform an operation. Now this operation would be pretty simple, retrieval of the record. So in this particular line of code, we are simply retrieving a record from the database and we are simply passing in the class of the entity class, and we are passing in the ID using which we would be retrieving the information. Now in this particular example, we are retrieving the information, or we are retrieving the record where the user or the primary key is 8. Let me show you the database first. So in here the user ID is 8, or we can also say that this is the primary key. The primary key ID is 8, right? So in here we are retrieving the information, and the information is pretty simple. The information is this particular row where the user name is admin@studyeasy.org, password is 123456, first name is Chand, last name is Sheikh. So we would like to delete this last record. All right, so we will in here update these two line of code, which is pretty simple. First of all, let me add a comment like deleting a record with user ID 8. All right, so this is it. And then finally we would be making use of something known as session. Oops, the autocomplete isn't working properly. Eclipse is not responding somehow. Give me a second. Alright, so this is working now. And then we have something known as delete method. Again, Eclipse is not responding that code. Alright, so in here, then we would be like passing in delete, and then finally we would be passing in the object of the entity class. So what is the entity class? This entity class object has the entry for user ID 8, right? So we would be deleting this object, and in turn Hibernate in the background will delete the record from the database itself. So always remember this, that the operation are usually based on the object of the entity class. So that is something we need to know. Alright, so now finally if we check whether this is working properly or not, then we can rectify whether our code is proper or not. So I will right click, run as Java application. Somehow Eclipse isn't working properly today. Maybe some background process is going on. So apology for that. The response time is little high. Please bear with me. Here we go. Let me maximize this. So Hibernate is doing many things in the background, as we can see. And then finally, here we go. So it has deleted a record from the database, and we can also rectify this. If we navigate to Workbench now and click on this execute query, then we can easily see that the record with user ID 8 has been deleted successfully, and which is fantastic. And this is how we can delete a record from the database. Now as if now we haven't checked how to make use of Hibernate with Spring, or there is something more with Hibernate, something known as HQL, Hibernate Query Language. This is something we need to also see, and HQL is something which we will check in our next section. So by saying this, I hope I have made myself clear, and I hope this lecture was easy to understand for you guys, and hope to see you in the next video. Thank you and take care. Alright, so let me quickly show you Workbench, and in here I have updated the contents in the users table, and now there are 4 users by the name of user 2, user 3, user 4 and user 5 with first name as Salim, Vidya, Max and Steve. Alright, so this looks cool, and our target is to list all the users which are there in the users table using Hibernate, which is pretty simple in fact, and we would be making use of HQL to achieve this target. And for doing so, first of all we would require a list, so we will type in list and it would be list of users. Alright, and the object name would be, for example, users. And in order to retrieve the information as a list, we will make use of HQL, and which is pretty simple as well. Let me show you. Alright, so in here I will type in session. By the way, we have already coded this particular class a little, where we have added the session factory and session already. So this part is already explained to you in the previous lectures, so I hope that you guys remember this. Alright, so now let's proceed.